Busy day today for Donald Trump, the president-elect, as he works to form his cabinet and fill other key posts in his administration. On Saturday, 2012 GOP nominee Mitt Romney met with Mr. Trump at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. He may be in consideration for the job of Secretary of State, even after trading critical words with the president-elect during the heated campaign season. Today, another one-time adversary, Rick Perry, was spotted at Trump Tower. The former Texas governor may be a contender to lead the defense or energy departments. Also meeting with Mr. Trump, Oklahoma Governor Mary Fallin, who could be chosen to head the Interior Department, and former U.S. Senator Scott Brown, friend of ours, in possible contention for Veterans Affairs Secretary. Lots and lots here. Let's first look at a soundbite from the meeting with Governor Romney, and then we'll get Kimberly's reaction.
We had a far-reaching conversation with regard to the various theaters of the world where the interests of the United States of real significance. We discussed those areas and exchanged our views on those topics. Very thorough and in-depth discussion in the time we had, and appreciate the chance to speak with the president-elect, and look forward to the coming administration.
Did you bury the things
that it's going to be doing.
Kimberly, a little bit of the Odd Couple meeting on Saturday.
I know, it was interesting, but I like that we kind of had a front row seat to it, to be able to see it happening in real time, because at first the media was criticizing, oh, this is chaos. It didn't look too chaotic to me. It looked pretty orderly. It was interesting. The media was there. It was transparent. But then on the other hand, now, instead of talking about that it was in total chaos, they're saying, oh, this was a media event. It's turned into the whole, Trump show, et cetera, et cetera. You can't please them, no matter what you do. But he is having a nice, orderly process. And I like to be able to see who's coming in, who's in contention, to be able to discuss it and read about them and see perhaps, what some of the feedback is about it. And this is an example of Trump putting his money, substantial amounts of it, where his mouth is, by reaching out and meeting with Governor Romney, somebody who was his adversary during this process, to say, look, people who criticize me, I will, in fact, work with them and sit them down at the table in an earnest effort to govern this country effectively, as I promised the voters.
So a wide array of people. Gutfeld, you said you wanted to talk about General Mattis, who came. We have some sound.
Oh, great. I love sound.
Okay.
And tape.
All I can say is he is the real deal. He is the real deal. Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Will he have a place in your administration?
We're going to see. He's just a brilliant, wonderful man. What a career, and we're going to see what happens.
All right, Greg, your thoughts?
I love anyone with a good nickname, and Mattis has three. Okay. He has three nicknames: Chaos, Warrior Monk, and Mad Dog. Amazing. Maybe it's me, but I don't think these nicknames portend a buttercup who's going to be too concerned about collateral damage.
Yeah.
I think this is, if you ever read any of his quotes, he's like a quote catapult. My favorite one, he said, is, be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everyone you meet.
He's my ideal man.
Yeah, he is.
I can't
he's your
even
soulmate,
tell
Kimberly.
you.
And you know what it is? I think his primary rule of engagement is to kill. He understands the USP of a soldier. He's not sending those guys out to be social workers.
Right.
He's sending them out there to complete a mission, and the mission is a mission that so many people don't want to admit to, but he understands it, which makes him he represents everything that President Obama avoided in his nominations, which is the ugly, brutal reality of the world.
What do you think, Eric? There's a lot of people coming through. They've made some announcements, and I suppose, but just from reading the tea leaves, it looks like they might wait till after Thanksgiving to announce a whole bunch more.
Yeah, not sure. So he met with Mad Dog Mattis. You had to love that. You're going, yes.
That is one of my nicknames, by the way.
Mitt Romney, yes, Chris. That's great. Today, Scott Brown. Newt Gingrich apparently is there right now. But the one that stood out for me today, Tulsi Gabbard. I thought that was fantastic. He met with a Democrat who questioned Obama and Hillary Clinton's Syrian strategy, and I think that was very smart that Trump reached out to her and talked to her about whether, I don't know, maybe bring her into the administration in some form. But it shows that he wants to win. He wants to do what's best for the country. I thought there was a great few minutes he spent with her.
Let's get you in here, Geraldo. What do you think?
I think General Mattis is an excellent choice for a reason that I don't think many people recognize, aside from the fact that he is an indomitable warrior. I saw him in Iraq and in Afghanistan. He's a real soldier. He sees ISIS as the primary threat to the United States. That's very, very important. But he also is an advocate of the two-state solution. He believes that Israeli settlements in the West Bank are counterproductive to the peace process. And I think that when you take that point of view, that may be why he doesn't get the nomination. But if he does, I think that it bodes well for President Trump going forward in the Middle East. In terms of Mitt Romney, the only thing I worry about, I like that they buried the hatchet, but you have to remember that Romney believes Russia is the prime threat to the United States. He said that. I remember Obama said, you're redredging your 2008, whatever it was, in his debate with Romney, said he was old-fashioned to still be focused on Russia. Trump wants a détente with Russia to go against ISIS, the real enemy, as I do. I agree with Trump on that. So I wonder substantively, aside from the burying the hatchet stuff, if they're not on different wavelengths.
Kimberly, let's play a little sound from something else that Vice President Mike Pence, who we're going to talk about a lot, so you want to stick around on this show because we have something later on that everybody's been talking about all weekend on the Hamilton play. Mike Pence was on Face the Nation on CBS yesterday morning talking about possible ways to go against ISIS. I think one thing, Kimberly, he could have added is that the Trump administration will follow the law, but we will not going to tell the enemy what we're going to do. But otherwise, pretty tough.
Yeah, and good. They should be, because this was the message. It's consistent, on point with the campaign. So he nailed that landing. The Russian judge would even give him a 10. So that's what he should be saying. I'm not going to tell anybody what I'm going to do to you if you're very bad. Let yourself live in fear about this and suspense, because you have to have all tools on the table to be able to utilize to your advantage, especially in the face of non-compliance with your adversary. Okay, so that's it. No more light pink line drawn in the sand. When it's red, it's the enemy's blood that's spilled. Just ask Mattis.
Greg, I wondered if the environmental community today was freaking out that maybe somebody from Texas would end up at the Energy Department, and Rick Perry apparently meeting today with that being a possible job for him.
Yeah, again, though, I can't help but think if this is some kind of kabuki theater like that President-elect Trump is inviting all the exes over that spurned him, and now he's rubbing their face in it. Because I just can't see Perry. Perry was one of the first and the hardest at the beginning. But I want to talk about the fact that there are more women. That you're seeing more women being up there, and it's going to be hard for liberal critics now to use that as an excuse when I think there must be 4 to maybe half a dozen women that are being looked at, right? I think so. There was at least 4. Yeah, so I mean, what are they?
Haley
so yeah, they're going to have to demand. They're going to have to say, okay, what can they demand now? Lactose intolerant vegans? Are they going to have to go for height challenged, warlocks like myself?
Yeah, I was going to say you.
Yeah, they're going to have to find they're going to have to. They're running out of criticism. The more you see Democrats. He had at least 2 Democrats there. Maybe more.
It's fairly common to have a Democrat join an administration, Geraldo, because I think it really kind of started with Bill Clinton when he had William Cohen as his Secretary of Defense.
I actually saw William Cohen endorsing the selection of General Mattis if it comes to that. Rick Perry, I don't see. I remember him sitting right here. I happened to be a co-host, and he was running for president. And everybody reminded him that he didn't remember the Department of Energy when asked. So now
maybe that's good.
But I think that the kabuki theater might have hit it. The one that really scares me, though, is Chris Kobach, the current Secretary of State of Kansas for Department of Homeland Security.
I know why.
Because he is the hardest. First of all, he's for the Muslim registry, which I am opposed to. We had a Muslim registry from 2002 to 2003. People forget that, and as a result of it, 14,000 Muslim immigrants who had overstayed their visa were deported. But then we found, the Bush administration found constitutional problems with it. They did away with the program. But he is the hardest liner in terms of deportation. I think he'd go after the DREAM Act students. And I've debated him. He's a very, very intelligent, Ivy League educated fellow, very smooth. But I think he'd be a disaster from the point of view of the immigrant community. I think that he would be a disaster, Chris.
Last word to you, Eric, on any of them?
No, one thing that is concerning me is there's rumblings. First of all, John McCain said he would push back if there was anyone that was trying to push waterboarding, to reinstitute waterboarding. That's an interesting conflict that may happen. So whoever gets appointed will go through the process that you need. Right now, the Republicans are at 51, so you can lose 1 Republican vote, and that's it. And that's assuming whoever gets appointed isn't one of those Republican votes. So anyway, so that would be
like Jeff Sessions.
Well, unless you're replace it with another Republican.
Alabama, Governor,
right? In Alabama, it's pretty safe. But in a place that may not be safe, you may, in Louisiana right now is still up in the air. You're not sure who that final Senate seat's going to go to. Very quickly, though, one of the most disturbing things I read today was a Wall Street Journal had a piece saying that President Obama was looking to shore up the Iran nuclear deal prior to leaving. He's got 59 days left. And for me, this is very, very scary. They really need to push back. And yes, transition is important, but someone needs to get front and center saying, hey, whatever deal you're about to make with President Obama, we're coming next and we're going to renegotiate that deal.
There is a lot more to come on that, too, and including also not just Iran deal, but also some warnings from some to President Obama about Israel and not making any decisions there.
Moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Or other things, right.
All right, welcome back to The Five. We have no script, so let's see what's going to happen. I guess I can talk about whatever I want.
Bunnies.
But let's talk about hop-alongs and the transition. Who else have we saw?
Bowling if he's been asked to visit Trump Tower to get a job yet.
I believe you just did.
I've been to Trump Tower. I talked to all my friends over there, very close friends over there, and there's.
Can you tell us for the record whether they offered you a job or invited?
Why are you doing that to your co-host?
I wouldn't tell you that one way or the other. I would just tell you that they're good friends of mine, and I love my job, and I have every intention to stay right here for as long as Fox will have me sitting next to you, Geraldo.
Oh, that sounded a little equivocal.
Make Fox News great again from the center seat. All right. Okay, so
I'm proud to sit along.
All right, Geraldo. You're on a timer.
This is why we should have had a script.
Exactly.
Yeah, you blew
All right,
it.
so let's talk about Michelle Rhee, who is being considered the top candidate, in fact, for Secretary of Education, but it's not without its controversial aspects because she is somebody that has backed Common Core and being a Democrat, but yet there's other attributes that would be considered favorable.
Well, she was basically like an actor for creative destruction in the D.C. public schools and was really, I think, quite heroic in all that she did there. And she was somebody who was just not afraid to make really tough decisions and be criticized all throughout D.C. And so I think she's absolutely a force for good. And I hope that she does, or somebody like her would be able to fill that role, because goodness knows our school children and the teachers and principals in particular, the principals need to be empowered. And I think she's got just a different and better approach on education.
All right, Greg.
Well, I like her because she had some innovative ideas. For example, she tried to get salaries for teachers based on student achievement and not on tenure, and that upset a lot of unions.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So she's kind of like, she's an Obama opposite. It's just not somebody, like I said in the A block,
like
that he would nominate. She supports vouchers and school choice. School choice. She's also married to KJ, Kevin Johnson. We went to school together at Berkeley. He used to walk into my room when I was half asleep and hungover and stare at me and just shake his head and leave.
Is he a mayor?
Is that because you were half
Sacramento?
clothed?
Right. Yes,
Yeah,
mayor of Sacramento.
Right.
He actually, I think somebody tried to throw a pie in his face recently, and he beat him up.
Nice.
It's like Hannity put me in a chokehold.
One hombre. Oh, you're chokehold?
Not another chokehold.
Interrogation technique.
You're making a lot of friends today.
Don't talk to him in the break.
Good to know you.
Can I just add that, I'm sorry, that I said that I think that the Department of Education should be shut down, and Michelle Rhee might be the right one to do it.
So she gets a spot and shuts herself down.
Let me clarify that. I think this is a better idea to keep it open right now and reshift the focus to school choice. Trump has said he wanted to spend $20 billion immediately to offer school choice, to offer more choices. I think that number is going to be substantially higher than that, and you need someone on board who knows what it's all about, both knows the Democrat way of thinking, the unions, et cetera, teachers unions, and also someone willing to make that change. That is a massive sea change in the way America looks at education. She's probably the right one.
I agree, and it also opens, the scenario for more charter schools, more school choice. I don't think that it's a kind of synonym or a hidden code word for racism in public schools. I think charter schools are integrated. They're terrific. They have a real role to play, and I agree with Greg in terms of the unions having a disproportionate power where so much of their effort and energy goes into, kind of getting their own benefits enhanced, their own salaries enhanced, rather than the performance of the children.
And when you look at Rhee and you look at Gabbard, it's got to be really hard for the media to keep pushing the alt-right meme. It's like, do any of these people look like they belong to the alt-right?
Well, no. So it's a total disconnect with you know what they're putting forward in their mantra and their criticisms about the potential administration of you know Donald Trump, the president-elect. Go ahead. You want to talk about Sessions? Too.
I do. I think that where the rubber really hits the road will be with the Attorney General selection already announced. Jeff Sessions, the Alabama senator, who everyone has to remember that in 1986, in the Reagan administration, in a Republican-dominated Senate, he was denied a federal judgeship because of alleged racist activities in his background. He was a teenager, a white teenager in Selma, Alabama, during the famous march across the bridge, and all. You can imagine what teenagers, with similar backgrounds were doing on both sides of that wrenching conflict. People have changed. He's changed. He marched in the Selma 50-year celebration or commemoration, which is great. But I think that he's going to have some baggage.
Not only that, he spent 10 years prosecuting segregation. He was for desegregation, civil rights cases.
He also
so he may have had what you want to call it, a questionable moment in life. But for the past 30 years, he's certainly gone a completely different direction, away from any of that stuff that happened, may or not have happened years ago.
I agree with you, but 30 years is 30 years, and people have to judge whether it affects.
I said it before. The people in that hearing are no longer with us, and also he also prosecuted the head of the KKK. Yeah. If that's racist, we need more racists.
Well, I will let that.
Right. I mean, I think to be fair, you got to judge a man.
He put a guy away who was the head of the KKK.
Right. You have to judge a man or a woman on their conduct, their actions. He has 30 years of service and dedication in the civil rights area, and instead of the people that want to question and interpret a sentence or two or a statement that he made. I mean, I think the choice is obvious.
So did you hear about Vice President-elect Mike Pence checking out the Broadway show Hamilton? Surprise, surprise, he was booed by the crowd. Then the cast lectured him. Nice. Now, if you expect any of us to flip out, I'm not gonna. I'm no baby. I don't need a safe space. I'm used to the right being singled out by entertainers. Actors seem brave and unpredictable, but they're as spontaneous as a tax return. However, this was lame. Imagine a right-wing doctor in a very sensitive visit. He's got his head down deep in a pelvic exam and suddenly pops up and says, "Before I tell you what you have, Mrs. Kane, you need to know how the left has ruined our nation's inner cities." That's what these actors did. They violated the terms of service. The customer, when he purchases your work, makes a pact. Once you violate it, the manners we take for granted in society, they fall apart. No one wants a lecture when you're getting a latte. So if you get one without asking, isn't that grounds for some discipline? But libs work by different rules, especially their entertainers. Comedians attack their own audience for not agreeing with them. Singers demand that you vote like them. And musicians throw fits if a Republican uses their songs. Mm-hmm. How odd that the proponents of free expression think free only applies to them.
So much to talk about this. The actor, Brandon Victor Dixon, said that this was a discussion. Well, it wasn't a discussion when you stand on a stage with the only microphone and the other person in the discussion sitting in the audience with his daughter and his daughter's friends or cousins. That was ridiculous. The crowd was worse than the actor. And I'm all for free speech. I'm all for that. His ideas. I think his ideas are fantastic. But deliver those ideas not on Broadway, not to an audience that can't, or to a person that can't even respond, delivered on MSNBC where they belong.
Yeah. The person you got to listen to as an authority, Stevie Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, was one of the first people that fought against apartheid, who wrote the song Sun City. He tweeted this out: "There has never been a more outspoken, politically active artist than me. He was their guest. You protect your guest. Don't embarrass them." Then the second tweet: "A guy comes to a Broadway show for a relaxing night out. Instead, he gets a lecture from the stage. Not a level playing field," which is what you were saying, Eric. It's bullying. Is it bullying, Kimberly?
Yeah.
Is it too far?
I just think it's bad form. I wasn't impressed at all. I'm super excited to keep my $1,400 that I wasn't going to spend there. Honestly, yeah. I mean, they're just so arrogant, so self-important. I'd rather watch like reruns of Narcos or something. I mean, honestly. And to say that Mike Pence is such a kind man and he's so dignified, he's a class act, and it just, to me, really was another opportunity for him to demonstrate how to handle things properly. And I felt bad because he's there, with his daughter, etc. It's like, but nevertheless, he rose to the occasion. He was vice presidential, and for people to see the way he reacted with greatness and with dignity in the face of smallness.
Geraldo, how about the other side of this? Could, you know, the protesters and activists always say they're doing it in the name of the greater good. In this case, Mike Pence is against gay marriage. So they're saying, like, if this guy's in our house, this is our opportunity to point out his intolerance. Why should we be tolerant?
Well, first of all, let me just, without being condescending to people from the West Coast, let me just suggest that New York is a town, it's a rough town. I mean, you go to Yankee Stadium, everybody gets booed at Yankee Stadium. And this is the most political play on Broadway. This is everybody in that building is Jewish, gay, Latino, and/or black. Everybody in that building voted for Hillary Clinton. It's as if Hillary Clinton walked on the stage of the Country Music Awards. You know, very sensitive. Immigration is a big issue with Hamilton, who was an immigrant from the Virgin Islands up to the United States, and he made his fortune, and immigrants can get the job done. And in New York, you can be a new man. My family loves this play. And in terms of Judge Jeanine leading the campaign to boycott Hamilton, New Yorkers are cheering because maybe tickets will become available for less than the $1,400 that
like
they currently cost.
They're sold out, except for the, you know, the brokers and stuff for $1,400, so they feel they can get away with it and like thumb their nose at everybody.
I think
I DVR'd the PBS special.
Really?
That's how I watched it.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, not the whole.
I mean, Juan saw it. That was it.
Do you find it funny that, I mean, actors are probably the most living in a bubble world and coming out and talk about being inclusive. Have you ever been around an actor, a young actor? They're not entirely inclusive. Well,
and then he says it was a spontaneous conversation, but he read his statement off of an iPhone.
Yes.
At the end of the play. The other thing is, President Obama, when he first ran for president in 2008, both he and Hillary Clinton said that they were against gay marriage, that they believed that marriage was between a man and a woman. And I don't think Broadway said a word about either of them in that first term at all. The other thing is that Donald Trump has said he thinks that issue is done, over with. He's not pursuing it.
Gay marriage.
Yes, and so Mike Pence isn't going to do it either. So give it a rest.
Yeah, there you go.
But isn't the bottom line that Pence went through the storm and emerged as the big person in the room?
Right. Yeah.
So doesn't it have a happy ending? So the right should not be outraged. Here he was tested by the hardest crowd, the toughest stage.
Here's how tough it was. Don't forget, Hamilton. The cast of Hamilton did a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton. Remember that? You can't even touch a ticket
and
here,
she was there,
and they raised money.
And stuff like that.
Lin-Miguel Miranda. That
was Pence's definitely away stadium.
Yeah, he was like,
his home
sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
The left should learn that when you outnumber somebody, they generally win because everybody sympathizes with David and not Goliath.
Welcome back to The Five. Some very upsetting news this Monday. 4 police officers have come under attack over the last 24 hours alone in 3 different states, Texas, Missouri, and Florida. It's believed 3 of those incidences were targeted attacks. A detective in San Antonio was killed while writing a traffic ticket. A sergeant in St. Louis was shot in the face by someone in a car who pulled up alongside his cruiser. An officer in Gladstone, Missouri was shot after a passenger ran from a car during a traffic stop. And in Sanibel, Florida, another officer shot while conducting a traffic stop. And I'm hearing right now that the suspect in the San Antonio shooting, which killed the officer, may have been caught. So we're going to work on confirmation of that. In the meantime, how will President-elect Donald Trump address the attacks on law enforcement in America when he takes office? He declared during the campaign that he was the law and order candidate. Listen.
Law and order must be restored. The war on our police must end, and it must end now. The war on police is a war on all peaceful citizens who want to be able to work and live and send their kids to school in safety. Our job is not to make life more comfortable for the rioter or the robber or the looter or the violent disruptor.
Yeah, Dana, that resonated with a lot of his supporters.
Absolutely.
A lot of Americans, actually.
I think, and I think that's one of the reasons he got so much support across the board. The thing I wonder about is, aside from setting the tone and perhaps some resources through the federal government, I'm not exactly sure what a president can do to affect local crime. That is something, I mean, maybe enhanced coordination, or if the police departments say they need more support. But other than that, I'm not exactly sure what he can do.
Yeah, I think I think local police departments could use more assets. They can use more money. They're always looking for money. There's always reasons to spend more. Even body cams is another
yeah,
issue.
Body cams, appropriate, protective gear, more training. I mean, instead of like constantly bad-mouthing and penalizing police officers, I'm looking forward to this administration being for law and order, which protects public safety and keeps families and children safe and does help the economy by creating opportunity in neighborhoods where otherwise people would be afraid to go into open businesses. And to me, this is so important. I saw firsthand as a prosecutor working gang cases in Los Angeles DA's office and San Francisco communities in strife and how much they relied on the police department. And instead, in the wake of Ferguson and other things that we have seen, which has been definitely a hostile environment to law enforcement across this country, we are now, every day when you turn the television on, hearing another tragic tale about a family that has lost a member in blue, a woman, a man, police officer that have gone forward, got up in the morning, put their shoes on, and hope to not catch a bullet and lose their life so that they can read their kid a book at night before they go to sleep. And that's what we have to think about. They're human beings that are making the ultimate sacrifice. They should be respected and not automatically call a whole department racist and call for the Attorney General to investigate civil rights violations every time there's a shooting that occurs. But nothing happens when in a case like this. This president, I believe, will in fact call those police officers, will in fact invite them to the White House instead of inviting people, Black Lives Matter, to the White House instead.
KG just hit on a lot of things. Can a president affect change down to the mayoral level and then affect change down to the chief of police level?
I don't think so. I don't think it's about resources. It's about morale.
That's part of it.
It's about morale. It's about, for the last few years, we have ginned up a lot of antipathy towards police through the media. Look at what's happening post-election. The media is chasing phantoms of hate crimes and hoaxes. While this is going on, you've got these horrible shootings, but people are worried about these swastikas showing up places, and they cannot figure out where they're coming from. This is far more important. But there's an interesting thing about what almost all of these were routine stops, and it tells you that every single action in a police officer's life has to be totally alert. Even when he's writing a ticket, he has to be completely alert. Nobody gets that. So when an activist gets up in the morning after playing 4 hours of video games and sitting around doing nothing, and then they go out to protest a cop, that cop has been alert all day and has to be alert with you at all times, and he is vulnerable at every moment. Meanwhile, the people that protest him, they don't give a
they don't have to be, they don't have to watch their back 24/7.
Yeah, they don't have to watch. Yeah.
Raldo, what about re-examining our rules of engagement
Watch their
law enforcement level?
Let me just say, I don't disagree with anything that anyone has said on this issue thus far, but thank you. But I think the one thing that we're missing is the role that rhetoric has played. I mean, that, I think, to Dana's point, is where the president can really, by condemning the people who are making the racist pig cops and all this kind of language, I think they are creating a climate, a hateful climate, where there is some cachet, some perverse cachet in taking on an officer with violence. And I think that is sick. It must be confronted.
Can I just add that saying that you believe Black Lives Matter and getting behind that movement adds to the problem, doesn't help the problem. It adds to the rhetoric, the heightened rhetoric, and the divisiveness between that community and the law enforcement community.
Well, let me give you a specific example of what I was talking about. Now, Chicago, everybody admits, whether you're right, left, whether you're Rahm Emanuel or Donald Trump, you admit this is a city experiencing a violent crisis, where so many people are dying every weekend. A prominent official's son and grandson, and there is blood in the streets. We need in Chicago stop and frisk. I mean, to me it's one of those simple.
We need it everywhere, so they don't turn into Chicago.
We need it everywhere, but particularly in a place where that's where I'm getting at. So I think that he can say, first of all, cops are our brothers and our sisters, and we honor them. Second of all, why are you complaining only about this when you have this much bigger issue that is afflicting your community in such a profound way? When President Bush left office in 2009, he made a vow that he would not criticize President Obama. President Bush saying that his successor deserved his silence. Yesterday, Mr. Obama was asked if he also planned to stay quiet on President-elect Trump. President Obama, though, signaled there may be limits to his silence.
I want to be respectful of the office and give the president-elect opportunity to put forward his platform. If there are issues that have less to do with the specifics of some legislative proposal or battle, but go to core questions, our values and our ideals, then I'll examine it when it comes.
A long one.
Dana, I think that George W. Bush really did himself tremendous credit by his dignity and his discretion, let me say, after he left office. But he must have been biting the inside of his cheeks or his tongue when people criticized him about things like Katrina or the economic situation.
Yes, but even that year leading up to even before we knew who was going to win the 2008 election, he would be asked all the time about his legacy. And one of the best things he used to say is that in 2008 he read 3 biographies about George Washington, and if the first president was still being written about, then the 43rd didn't have a lot to worry about because he would never know.
I love that.
And he really followed in the footsteps of his father, who did the same, and they were just patriots and gracious and all that. Sometimes it gave me heartburn, right? Because you think, well, my gosh, that's not actually true. But I was out there, and there were a few other people like Carl and Karen Hughes, Ari Fleischer, Nicole Wallace, others that were able to say, well, actually, let us tell you what it is. The thing is, I think with President Obama is he's a very young man. He's leaving the presidency at a young age. He has a lot of life to live. I don't think we exactly know, and maybe he doesn't know yet, all the range of things that he's going to want to do in his life, from the library, the institute, the philanthropy, the business, whatever he decides to do. But I also believe this. I think that President Obama thinks that if he would have been on the ballot this year, that he would have beat Donald Trump.
Oh,
and so
what do you think?
He won't. I don't think he will bite his tongue too much.
But Greg, here, let's just say that legislation is proposed and looks like it could pass, that there will be a registry of everyone who's Muslim. Wouldn't that be something so extraordinary that you would expect President Obama to say something?
Well, actually, the point is there is no one on the left to present a formidable opposition. There's not even a Jon Stewart around anymore to pitch in. So all they have no bench. So all they have is a former President Obama and his wife are the only people that anybody is going to listen to. And what's he going to do? He's going to be like Wooderson in Dazed and Confused. He's the guy that graduated from high school but still drives around the high school to pick up chicks. You know, he's like, oh, what do I do now? I'm in D.C. I got nothing to do. So he might just have to do this because there's nobody else there to do it.
Interesting.
What's your expectation?
So President Obama in that soundbite said if Donald Trump or the President Trump says something that goes to the core question of our values and morals, but here's the question, because we know there's a vast divide between what President Obama's ideals and values are and what Donald Trump's are. I mean, we elected the next president, okay? The people elected the next president. Whatever your view of ideals and values are, that were rejected, and Hillary Clinton was pretty much along the same lines as Obama's. So it's time to let the president do what the people has asked him to do, which is lead the country.
And yet quickly, Kimberly, in 20 years, he's going to be younger than I am now. I mean, he's got to say something about things.
Well, and also it's...
What about juvenile justice?
I think he's very different from, the Bush family from 41 and 43, and I don't think necessarily kind of like his ego, his legacy, his desire to still be forward in the spotlight is going to allow him to remain silent. He's going to spend, time trying to raise $1 billion for his library, for perhaps a foundation similar to the Clintons, perhaps become like climate czar or something, head globalist. So we'll see, but I don't think he's going to be quiet.
One More Thing is next.
It's time now for One More Thing. I'll go quickly. I was in Florida over the weekend. I hit lots of places, the Villages, Lakeland, Tampa, Fort Myers, Miami. Thanks for welcoming me. It was the Let Me Tell You About Jasper book tour. That's a guy who started a company called Pop Your Pup. Check that out. I was on C-SPAN with Peter Slen. He's a great guy. Lots of people. That's the guy we're talking about. Kimberly brought the dog with him. Her name is Stella, I believe. And then I got home last night, which was great. Saw Peter. I was like, oh, thank God I'm home, because that was quite a trip. And then this is a little video upon our arrival. Do we have that? This is like how ridiculous.
Oh, my God.
This is how, like, it's sped up a little bit, but honestly, not that much. That's how crazy it can be. So
he's a good boy.
It was very fun.
Okay, tonight, 8 o'clock, O'Reilly. I'm hosting it again. Big show. Now, Austin Goolsbee, we're going to go at it. I love fighting with that guy. Lieutenant Colonel, yeah, he's a great guy. So smart,
bowling.
Lieutenant Colonel Peters. John Meacham, presidential historian.
Love John Meacham.
Katie Pavlich is going to take on...
we love her.
Marsh, first name. Marianne Mars.
Marianne Mars.
Don't miss it.
Well, they're always good together.
Yeah, they are.
America's Newsroom a lot together. Okay, shout out to what's my favorite besides military, police officer. Well, yes. This involves officers and food. What a dream. Shout out to the Fort Worth Police Department in Texas. Last week, officers were pulling over drivers for minor traffic violations. Instead of writing them a ticket for missing a stop sign or something like that, they were handing over frozen turkeys. Can you imagine the joy and the relief when you got a turkey instead that you can bring home to your family? So they said that they made 25 turkey traffic stops.
I would have had too much of a heart attack for getting in trouble. I would have had
sweet?
it. Yeah, I probably would have.
And this was an appreciation to their
Geraldo, you go.
This is inspired by Jasper to see how Dana relates to her dog. I don't, I have little dogs. This is the pet that I hang out with. It's a rescue dove. You know, weddings, funerals, they release the doves. They're not wild animals, though.
I was wondering where they went. They go to your place.
They crashed in a tree next to my house on the Hudson River near the George Washington Bridge.
What a bird
So he really, he's been there several years.
Wow.
My daughter, the 11-year-old Soul, named him Snowy.
How cute.
And I talked to him. I scratched his chest. He recognizes me.
Geraldo is such a softie.
Flies and lands on my
That's it for us. Special Report is next.